Bannock County Commissioners are back in session. Motion to go into the Board of Equalization.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we enter into the Board of Equalization.
Have a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So if you'd all listen to this, this is a hearing of the Board of Equalization under Idaho Law 63501. The Board of County Commissioners are required to convene as the BOE, or the Board of Equalization. We're here to determine market value under Idaho Code 63-205. All real, personal, and operating property subject to property taxation must be assessed annually at market value for assessment purposes as of 12:01 a.m. of the first day of January in the which such property taxes are levied. Furthermore, under Idaho Code 63-502, the function of the Board of Equalization shall be confined strictly to assuring that the market value for assessment purposes of property has been found by the assessor, and to the functions provided for in Chapter 6, Title 63 of Idaho Code relating to exemptions from taxation. It is hereby made the duty of the Board of Equalization to enforce and compel a proper classification and assessment of all property required under the provisions of this title to be entered on the property rolls. And in so doing, the Board of Equalization shall examine the rolls and shall raise or cause to be raised, or lower or cause to be lowered, the assessment of any property which in the judgment of the Board has not been properly assessed. The taxpayer shall have the burden of proof in seeking affirmative relief to establish that the determination of the assessor is erroneous, including any determination of assessed value. A preponderance of the evidence shall suffice to sustain the burden of proof. We're here to discuss the market value of the property, the condition, state, or information that is relevant to this topic. This is fact, not conjecture, or things you may think. We are not here to discuss taxes, past grievances, policy, personal income, or other issues. If you do not stick to the discussion as requested, your time will be reclaimed. The structure will be as follows. The property owner, we're going to have you come up and sit here, and you'll be allowed 3 minutes to start. The white light will come on. When the yellow light comes on, there's 1 minute left. When the red light comes on, you're through speaking. Questions from the assessor will come through the board. The assessor will be given 3 minutes, and questions from the appellant will come through the board also, and you'll get a 3-minute rebuttal, or a 2-minute rebuttal. Rules are be kind, direct all questions and comments to the board. If your conduct is out of line, you will be warned, and if you continue to be out of line, we'll have the marshals in here to escort you out of the facility. All right, let's go ahead and swear. Anybody that's going to have a hearing during this 1 o'clock hour, please stand and be sworn in.
You solemnly swear that any testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, Aaron, you're up first. I'm just telling you that if you haven't submitted the information already, we don't take new information at this hearing. All right, please state your name for the record, and your 3 minutes will begin.
My name is Aaron Hunsaker. I'm just here about the Harkness Hotel property. It kind of stems back to last year. My value quadrupled, and when I reached out to the assessor's office about it, what I was told was that you were using new software and that it wasn't being done accurately before. The problem I had with it is that I feel like my property is now an outlier among similar properties in the county. To me, I look at First Lava Hot Springs, and I went to a lot of their properties, and most of them I was at the time more than double their value for what I viewed as a similar property. And when I mentioned that to the assessor, they said that they would look into it. That they kind of agreed that they needed to look into those other properties. So when I got them this year, my value went up again a little bit, so I looked at the other properties, and I'm still considerably higher than most every property in Lava Hot Springs and Old Town Pocatello. And I just haven't felt that it's been explained to me why my property is so much higher than what I view as a comparable property.
Any questions?
I have one for the assessor real quick. When you said you looked at the other properties in Lava, did you use the online viewer for that?
Yes.
And has the online viewer been updated so that he's looking at the updated values? Okay, so that's been corrected from the previous year. Okay, thank you. That was my first question, or my question right now.
Okay. The assessor, your 3 minutes begin now.
Thank you. So when we reviewed this parcel for this year, we took the building and we divided it into 4 distinct categories. We have the section that is the Harkness Hotel. We have the section next to it that is a vacant commercial space that's been gutted. Next to that, we have the salon and spa. And then behind the hotel space, we have the small area that is currently serving as a pharmacy. There was a decision yesterday in a BOE that I'll address in here as well for that portion. So when we look at page 2 on our analysis packet, we broke the hotel value out for just that portion of the property. And that shows that of the total property, the Harkness Hotel is being assessed at $540,000. So when we looked at the space and then also kind of the unfinished basement, I think it's a dirt floor, or it's basically, it's not really usable for anything other than dry storage. We did find the opportunity to add some additional functional depreciation to that. So that did result in a small drop of about $30,000. But since the main concern was the hotel, we did try to focus on that. When we look at the Harkness, it certainly stands out from the other hotels in the South County area, partially due to its total renovation in 2014. To kind of speak to one of the appellant's concerns about the value jumping so much last year, the value stayed relatively flat in the range of $350,000 from the time of renovation until last year. When, as part of the process in converting everything into ProVal, when we drew this in, it didn't look like those updates had been reflected in the value of the property when it was remodeled. So that did get reflected last year, which resulted in a very large increase. So when we looked at it last year, I think we found a small opportunity for adjustment. This year, when we look at it, without having any income, expense, and vacancy information, either from the appellant or the other hotels in Lava, we didn't find any additional opportunities for adjustment. So in addition to the basement adjustment we made, we also removed all assessed value for the portion that's operating as Bengal Pharmacy. That would lower the total property value to $1,164,892. And that would break out to a land value of $52,390 and an improvement value of $1,112,502. And that would be our recommendation for the value adjustment.
So the total is $1,164,892.
Yes.
That's the recommendation. Comments, questions about what he just said?
And that, your adjustment's being based off of it being ISU leasing that space and that they don't pay property taxes, correct?
Yeah, there was a BOE decision yesterday where that portion of the building was rendered exempt.
I knew they were filing for that, but.
We had that discussion yesterday. So from the original 2023 taxes was $1,474,000, and you had BOE last year, and we come down to $121,240,000. So now we're down to $1,164,000. So, questions, comments?
So, as a general rule, are we seeing properties like this in South Valley appreciating at that amount, at that rate?
If we were to see a property that had undergone these sorts of renovations, we would expect some sort of commensurate adjustment in value if it had gone. Basically, all of the updates and renovations went unassessed effectively.
So again, comparing to the Lava Hot Springs hotels, how many of those have been updated?
The only one that we have in Lava Hot, well, there are two in Lava Hot Springs that are closest in terms of current condition, and that would be on the page 2 of your packet, towards the very bottom. That would be the Winzig Lodge and the Lava Hillside Suites. But when we look at it in terms of all of the appellants provided properties as well, if we break it out on a rate per room for the assessed value, it ranks number 2. If we look at all those properties on the sheet, it ranks number 5. One of the interesting things that we are working on is conducting actually a vacancy study, not just of South County, but of the whole county, to see, do geographic locations, how much of an impact do they play? And so if we find ourselves in a situation where we're able to get the income and expense and vacancy data from these properties, we can start to see how much of an impact that might have.
Do you feel like if you use the income method on this, you'd come up with a different number, or do you think the income number would be about where we're at?
It's hard to say. It just really depends on what that income and expense data shows. And then a big driver is the vacancy rate. You know, if all things were being equal, if the Harkins charged the same nightly rate that Lava did, but their vacancy was higher or lower, that could indicate a higher or lower value.
Mr. Hunsaker, do you have a rough idea of what your vacancy rate is? Is it in line with kind of the norm in the county?
I would expect it, well, not,
Because you're not the
not maybe
normal hotel.
Pocatello. I think chain hotels they're different
Yeah.
than independently. So to me, Lava Hot Springs would be a close comparison, and I would expect us to be relatively similar. We all kind of pull from the same market.
So do you have the same seasonality that Lava does?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So do you feel like the income method would be a more fair approach, or do you feel like it would be about 6s?
I don't know. I know that they requested that, and my concern was if I'm the only one that gives that, I don't know how that. I think you kind of need everybody's or none of it to make it accurate. And so I don't know. I don't know what income level would help me or hurt it
Right.
in that regard.
Okay.
Well, if I look at your comparisons, this was your sheet, right, with all the surrounding. And then if you look at what the hotel itself is, it's $540,445 on your assessed way below any of the other hotels. It's the other additions and parts that brings up the value. So if we're just talking hotel to hotel, you're actually lower value than all the rest of them, according to the paperwork that I have here.
Okay.
So what was the assessor's recommendation again?
Right there, 1,164,000.
Can I ask you guys a question? This is your 2024 property analysis where you have the one, and I know we've adjusted that, but it starts at 1215. That's your analysis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got the hotel at 540,000. And then the other portions, the 4 portions you mentioned, you have one at 95, one at 527, and one at 52.
Mm-hmm.
The hotel has twice the square footage of the salon, and they're about valued at the same rate. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so when we use the costing and valuation service we use is called Marshall & Swift. It's a pretty standard one, and what it does is when we have a category or a building like this that has multiple occupancy types, you know, the hotel, the salon, that sort of thing, it actually derives a separate cost based on that occupancy. So it uses a different set of costing data to model each occupancy type. So what that would show, where they're a very similar value, but about half the square footage on the salon, is Marshall & Swift determines that the overall rate per square foot for something like a salon is going to be a lot higher rate per square foot. Part of that is involved with the infrastructure, the finishes and amenities that go into building it.
And so I think you looked at different hotels, the hotel portion. Did you look at different salons as well to determine this?
No, we haven't compared the salon portion to other salons in the area. But that would be an interesting thing if we start to have concerns about the salon value, is how does that one stack up? And again, one of the unique things is what sort of, if it's being leased out, what sort of lease rates we expect to see. And the appellant brought up a good point. If they're the only one that submits data, it's really just a data point. It doesn't show us if it's accurate or not. So one of the things our office has been working on is how to foster that environment and that partnership with all the local business owners to make them feel comfortable with that, with sharing that kind of information, and also keeping it confidential.
Further questions?
Not at the moment. Growing up in McCam, I struggled that there's a piece of property there worth that amount of money, and so but I don't have a better feel or a better idea of where to go. I liked Commissioner Crowder's suggestion of looking at the salon and that to see if that is equivalent. And so part of me says we remand it back to you to do a little bit of a salon analysis to make sure we're in line there, and maybe we can do something, but I don't know.
Okay. Is that, well, like I say, in 2023, we was at almost 1.5 million. We're down to 1.2 million. Like I said, I don't know the analysis or the occupation of it. Would you want to send it back?
I would be willing to do that if the assessor would be willing to take that look at it in the time frame that they have. So, Mr. Chair, I would move that we send this back to the assessor to perform a salon analysis so that we make sure that we're not unfairly penalizing or whatever with that portion of it. So we get a look at the whole picture, not just the hotel picture of it.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, we're sending it back and let them look at it, reevaluate it, and then you'll be notified what the decision is.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Aaron.
All right, Clayton.
Are we doing admins?
Please state your name and then your 3 minutes will begin.
Clayton Armstrong. So I have one of my pole barn shops. We put a small little apartment in it for one of my sons. It's approximately 850 square feet. It's 2 levels, but it's pretty substandard. So the pole barn, all we did is framed the inside, and then, you know, it's not very well insulated. It's 2x4, 6.5 foot ceiling in the lower portion, and then the upper portion's kind of normal, about 8 foot ceiling. But, you know, very substandard, no central heat, no central air. Doesn't hold insulation very well. And to jump, you know, from where we were at the previous year at 54,000 to, they did come up and assess it and look over it, and I think it's at 204 right now, but I spent less than 40,000 total, and that included a little lean-to on the other side of the shop. And so to jump that much is just, to me, not fair. They're doing this as if it were, you know, a quality living place, and it's very substandard, you know, and not. So that's why I contend that amount.
Questions?
No questions, thank you.
To put the living quarters on it, did you get a building permit?
I don't know. We did that.
I didn't think that a pole barn was allowed to be living quarters.
Yeah, we
At all.
like the floor in there is gravel, and so we did a cement floor. I already had water from years ago, water and a septic over there, because we had a little bathroom, because some of my employees they meet up there in the morning and then go to work.
Like I say, I just didn't think it was legal to
So-
put a living quarters in a pole barn. So when I read this, I was a little curious if there was a building permit or anything conducted with it. All right, any further comments?
No?
Assessor's office?
Nope.
No, I mean, your 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
You begin.
Yes, I do. I did want to say we did go out and do an inspection, saw the living quarters, and when we spoke with Clayton, he was very reasonable, let us go out, remeasure, we got our measurements correct, and with some fine tuning, it was at 2.4. We're now recommending 201, 108 because of some other minor adjustments made due to the square footage of the living area. If you turn to the next page, you will see I've got it highlighted there. Pole building, it is still a pole building. We still have it valued as a pole building, but before it was valued as a bare bones pole building. No electrical, no plumbing. It was in at a very, very low value. After putting living quarters in it, it did raise that pole building to $89,020. It does have 850 square feet of living quarters, your kitchen, your bathroom, electricity. If you turn the page, this is the comparables page, and what I'm using here is just bare land because subject property doesn't have a single family dwelling on it. So therefore, the comparables found are all on just bare land just to support the land value. And as you can see, subject property is coming in at 1.31 per square foot. Comparable 1 is 218, comparable 2 is 183, and comparable 3 is 197. One thing I would like to state is that you can see the land did jump quite a bit, but the reason for that is the use changed. Before it was valued as just additional acres, and now that there is a family living on it, it is a separate parcel from the main parcel. It is now put in at full value for that area. And if you go to the next page, the comparables for the land, it does show that they're all within the vicinity, all within the outskirts of Bannock County. And if you turn to the very last page, you will see I've got an aerial there and a couple pictures just to kind of give you an idea. The pole building, it's got 425 square feet on the main, 425 square feet on the upper. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, concerns, what they just said?
Yeah, it's, I mentioned this and I didn't really realize it's in 2 parcels, but I can't sell that parcel as a dwelling space. I mean, I own both of them, but the agreement that I have with the owner, my father, we can never sell that. And I have applied to combine those 2 parcels. I didn't really realize they were separate parcels. And so I filled out that paperwork out already, but that won't happen for a year. So I couldn't sell that as a living space. I mean, there's just, and I wouldn't. Those shops are used by me, so.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Yeah, on the quality of construction of the living space, did you make any kind of adjustment for, as Mr. Armstrong described, as a substandard construction quality?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's put in features under pole building, so those living quarters are specifically valued for a pole building or detached garage. It is not valued as a single-family dwelling.
Okay.
So is that the $15,000? Is that the living quarter, or is it the 100, total altogether, 111,000?
Yeah, it's the 89,000. It's on the second page of the improvement data.
So is the,
And it's 89,020, and that includes the whole pole building. It includes the living quarters, it includes the, that is the complete pole building.
so what's
The
the
89,020.
What's the 15,000? Is that the lean-to portion of it?
No, that is the second pole building. If you
Okay.
look
Okay.
on
Oh,
the
yeah.
sheet, you'll
Yep.
see a second pole
I
building.
see that, okay.
And it's valued very low, and, but once we put on the living quarters, the plumbing, the electricity, all the amenities, it did jump it quite a bit. But 89,000 does not have living quarters at your normal single-family dwelling cost to build.
What would be normal cost to construct now for a normal house?
I would have to work it up, but but 89,000, even an 800 square foot home,
It's
you
$100
wouldn't
a
be able
square
to
foot.
find it. It,
And I'm assuming you performed all the work yourself on the interior?
Yeah,
So that explains some of the 40,000 is all you put into it. So-
it's just,
Well, and as you look at the comparables, your property's price at square foot is 130, or, $1.31. The others are 218, 183, and 197, so I would say that with the adjustments that the assessor is, on the worksheet is made, that we uphold the changes. What do you?
I can't see a reason to argue with the assessor. I've tried last couple.
Anything, John?
Go ahead then.
I'd make the motion that we agree with the assessor's worksheet, that we adjust the value to 201,108 with the change, coming off the improvements. We didn't read the parcel number, did we? Parcel RPR 38530288610. We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So we agreed with the assessor. They did come down some from the original assessment, but
I just had one question. When I combine the properties, does that change anything?
it will. Contiguous properties have a lower value,
Okay.
so something to look forward to for next year. You do have the opportunity to appeal either to the courts or to the state of Idaho. The notice will go out
30 days after.
within 30 days after BOE is over. You'll get a letter saying what was decided here today, and you have the opportunity to appeal in two different manners. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Corey. Corey Cusack. All right, please announce who you are, and your 3 minutes will begin.
Name is Corey Cusick. We received our appraisal this year, gone up since the previous year again. The parcel that we're talking about is, I consider open space. It's on a very steep hillside. And it also has the headwater of Rapid Creek at the bottom of it. I consider it unbuildable. As far as pasture land, can't even really be used for that, as steep as it is. It can't be worked with a tractor or equipment. So we feel going from $5,000 to $119,000 is unacceptable. guess I just don't understand the amount of increase on unbuildable land.
Okay. Questions? All right, your 3 minutes begin now.
So the subject property, if you'll turn to the property record card page of your packet, it should be the third page in. In 2023, we had that parcel in as a token value. For 2024, we went ahead and adjusted it to a contiguous value, additional acres, because it is contiguous to the home site. If you will turn to the comparables page, this subject property is on Buckskin. The subject property has about site acreage of 6.67. It is assessed at 41 cents price per square foot. Comparable 1, also on Buckskin at 9 acres, was sold for 63 cents price per square foot. Comparable 2, also on Buckskin, bare land, was sold for 63 cents price per square foot. Comparable 3, also on Buckskin, bare land parcel, was sold for 65 cents per square foot. All these parcels, the subject and comparables included, have the same topography. We did not see any topography adjustments for any of these. For the subject property, there is an access road that runs through the parcel and up the hill. We have an aerial of topography with surrounding parcels that match their neighbor parcels. As previously stated, last year it was in as token. It is now valued as additional because of its contiguous nature. And if you will turn to the map page after the comparables page, you can see where the comparables lie as opposed to where the subject is. They're all along Buckskin and they all have the same topography. The very last page is our aerial photo. Highlighted is the subject property. The property behind it, ending in 1-3, is the home site property that is contiguous to. You can see the topography is the same for all neighboring parcels, and none of these neighboring parcels have topography adjustments. Our recommendation is that the value be upheld for this parcel for the 2024 tax year.
Comments about what she said?
Are the comparables buildable lots? And is there, my concern is the Rapid Creek is at the very base of this hill. I'm guessing a septic system is not gonna fly that close to Rapid Creek. This is a 30 to 40 degree slope.
Okay.
It's hard to walk on.
In order to determine if a lot is buildable or not, we would need some kind of determination from planning and zoning of Bannock County to determine them as such.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
The comparables were all bare land. So I get the buildable lot question. Let me look at one more, if somebody else has a question.
Yeah, so on your sheet here, on your comparables, sell price, land only value. The dates above it, is that when they were sold?
Yes, on all 3 comparables. They're May of 27th, 2022, comparable 2, February 8th, 2023, and comparable 3, February 11th, 2022. Yes, those are the sale dates.
You had to expand the search in order to get comparables.
Well, and you time adjusted it, and I mean, if you time adjust it, so. Anything else?
These comparables, they're similar topography?
Yes, they are all in the Buckskin area and that mountainous area. They all have very similar topography to the subject property.
Everything up there is well and septic, correct?
Yes.
Well, any more buildable is kind of a relative term.
Well, I'll just say where I'm at, and I appreciate what you've said, but the preponderance of evidence, I mean, you've stated things, but you didn't bring any pictures, you didn't bring anything and that shows differences from what's here. And so I would uphold the assessor's value.
I've tried to find some things different. I'm looking at the comparables that you used, and I think the topography of the comparables is very comparable to what you're talking about. I understand the buildable question, but I can't see anything that would cause me to change the assessment either.
Nope.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that on parcel RP R38510226112, we uphold the assessed value.
We have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
So we upheld their value. You do have the opportunity to appeal. Like I said, you'll get the letter and give you the instructions if you want to appeal and the direction to go. Thank you.
Okay. I have one more question.
Okay.
These comparables, did they have, was there water on that slope at the bottom of it?
The third one, there was a house below it.
And these parcels that were sold, were they sold as buildable acreage?
We can tell that.
But they're all up and down along the road there, so. Well,
Okay.
thank you. All right. Rick? Please state your name and your 3 minutes will begin.
Rick Worley. I'm just here because I think the appraisal of this property was way too much. It has gone up every year, but not by $300,000. Now, these two properties are stated by the county to never, ever be separated. They must be sold as is forever. The lady that had this property built, Marcia Kelly, had it built under a hardship clause. And apparently there was no building permit built when they built 6759. It stated on some of the paperwork that I submitted. Now these properties have one well that feeds both places. The power from the well that runs the pump comes from 6755. It also feeds 6759, so 6755 actually pays the power bill on the water. 6759 is so far away from the pump that we have very little pressure. Now, when I called the assessor, they told me that this was, they said that the second house had never been assessed before, which I know better. And then I was told that it was listed as a pole barn, which I know better. I submitted the paperwork from, I believe it was 2008 in there. My parents went through this process twice before over this property. And it's been listed by the county to be listed forever as a home with a guest house. And it's been that way forever. The county will not let me separate the property. They never let us separate the property. So I've been told to sell the property. I basically have to give one house away to sell the other one. And as far as comparables go, according to Steve Bartlett with Premier Properties, you will not find a comparable like this anywhere. After the 3 letters I submitted, one was 2006, one was 2008. In all the years past that, according to Steve Bartlett with Premier Properties, they've researched and they can still not find a property that is comparable to this property. As far as the one well being locked by the county to never be sold, can't ever be separated. So I just don't understand going from the increases that we had to $300,000 more than last year. It just, to me, is, it's unreasonable.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Your 3 minutes begin.
Okay, so last year, there was a review done and they had found the, as he was saying, pole building, which was a shop. It was not actually a shop. It should have been a barn dominium of sort. So it was put in as a barn dominium, thus that's where the increase, and it had living, they also found living quarters, and that's where the increase came. As far as it being a one-of-a-kind property, it is unique, and it is difficult to find throughout the county 2 custom homes in rural area on ag, but let me see here. On page 1, what I did is I split it up into comparables for land and comparables for, we have to be at 100% market value for all land and all improvements on the land, so that second residence needs to be valued. On the first page, I have his land as 0.14 cents per acre, or per square foot at 10.36 acres. I did another ag comparable for 10 acres, and it's higher at 0.36. I also did a bare land comparable, just if it wasn't an in ag, what it would be sold for. It would be 0.4 cents per acre, and that's also 10.12 acres. On the next page, the subject property sits on 10.36 acres. It's a 1-story ranch-style home, 1997. Finished square foot we have as 2229. And square foot, it's coming in about $126 per square foot. But that's only valuing that home in particular. So on sale, on my comparable, I found a home that was unique as well. Same style home, same era, same livable finished square footage, and it's coming in at $420 per square foot. As I was reading on his sheets that it was to be considered a guest house. So I did find a guest house that was on another property, similar square footage, and it's coming in at $306 per square foot.
All right, thank you. Question?
Yes, that comparable you just mentioned, did both them properties have their own water source? Did they share a well?
Okay, all
Did they share
questions go right here.
electricity? Did they share electricity is what I'm wondering. I mean, we've managed to make this property, it's been in my family for 20 years now plus, and we've managed to make it work, and when I bought the property, I got a pretty good deal on it because my dad had pulmonary fibrosis and they had to move, so we worked something out. But what I'm curious is if these comparables, you might have comparable over here, they might have their own well, their own water source, city water, whatever. This 6759 is dependent on 6755, and that's what I'm getting to. The property is not desirable.
You're not asking questions now, you're.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm just trying to,
Okay.
there's no comparables, and if there is a comparable, I would like to see it so I could get it to Steve Bartlett,
Okay,
in case I have to file an appeal.
and there are just a couple of questions that I have for you.
Gotcha.
So I have these two pictures. We're talking about the house here.
Mhm.
And then the other property, it is the one off the side there?
Yes.
And so are they both on this assessed value, both buildings?
Yes, yeah, the
Okay.
total assessed value, yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
that's what I wanted to clarify, that both
Yes.
these buildings are both, because they're
Yeah, it
both
should
pretty
be
good sized
the-
buildings.
The total
And they always
assessed
have been.
value is,
So- And then the other part is that in 2000, you're talking about Steve Bartlett. Like say, the one letter is 2008, and the value was 350,000 then, at a minimum, he says,
Yeah,
or a maximum. And so here we are, 16 years later, prices have changed a whole lot.
Oh, I understand
in
that.
16 years. And so, honestly, just looking at the pictures and looking at the area and 10 acres of ground here, I don't think it's a bad price.
if I could sell it for that, I would, in a minute. But there's no comparables to come to that amount, you know, when the county is stating that we can't do nothing with it. It's,
Okay,
So,
And-
let me ask a question.
okay,
here.
go ahead.
Is the 55 where the water comes from, is that to the south, up the hill from you, or where's?
6759 would be setting west of 6759.
down off the
6755
hill?
sets down off the hill a little ways. And that's why 6759 has little water pressure, because the pressure switch and everything for the well should have been put at 6759. Why they wouldn't let her put a well in at that time, I don't know. It just makes it tough to sell,
Yeah.
according to the realtors that we've talked to.
Well, and I'm not sure that you couldn't put a well on there. I don't know what regulations you're talking
Well,
about.
this is what the county imposed.
No, the county doesn't impose wells.
Well, that's the only reason we was told that there couldn't be a well at that
The
place.
county,
So I can go ahead and drill a well over
well,
there.
we have nothing to say about a well. You have to go through the Water Resource Board, and the county has zero to say about it. And if you own property, you have a legal right to have potable water on that
Yeah.
property, if you have a home site. I mean, it's legal. You have the right to do that. So
Okay.
that's why when I say, you're
I just
telling me
wanna-
these things,
I just want to make sure of that.
I don't know where it come from.
Because even our property, the county has stated, there's certain parts of our yard that we're not even supposed to water.
Well, you have a legal right for water for a third acre, a half acre, what is it? On a home site. But you have a legal right to water so much. You don't have a legal right, you have 10 acres, you don't have potable water that you have a legal.
Yeah, but most of that acreage is down by the river.
Yeah.
I mean, we're living on probably maybe 2.5 acres.
I'd say that you could look with the Water Resource Board and see what your rights are.
Now, as far as splitting the property, where does the county, it means it's the county that says I can't. Why can't we get that cleared up?
Anita?
just have a question for Mr. Worley. Did he ever get a determination on this property, whether he can split it or not, or is he going off of the original owner?
Yeah, when was the last time that you asked somebody about splitting the property?
The last time that was asked when my parents was in here, 2008. I mean, I've got a stack of files. I didn't want to cumbersome you guys with it. I mean, they've attempted to have the property split at one time, but the problem at that time is when they made their imaginary line down the middle, you would still have to access, to give each place 5 acres plus a little bit. You still have to access the one property to get to the other property that you would give to 6759.
I'd encourage you to go talk to Hal Jensen at our Planning and Zoning Board and get some, and you said you didn't bring the stack of paper?
Yeah,
See,
I've got files from
that's
when
your
it was-
preponderance of evidence that we need. We can't just change the decision
Yeah.
because you come in and talk to us, but if you bring evidence, then we have something to work off of.
Man, it's that thick, and I just didn't want to burden you guys, because it's all,
Well-
I've got everything from when Marcia Kelly went to the courts, and, you know, it's just,
And that's the evidence. we're just taking your word on it, and like I say, I got a letter here you've submitted for 2008.
And 6,
Well,
and 24.
But that's how old that information is, and there's been so many changes.
But there's one from 24 too.
But he is acting, I mean, he tells me what his authority is, or what his licenses are and stuff.
His experience.
But verifying those things is something too. You know what I'm saying? It's just a letter to me right now.
Mr. Chair, my question does concern the water. If the property does not have its own well, is there an adjustment for that? Or,
We have them in as a well and septic and then another septic, so I mean, it's a shared well, I believe.
Yeah.
So I mean, he has access to water.
right, but I guess that's my point. It's shared water, it's not sole water.
There is a lot of parcels in Bannock County with shared wells. I mean, they're rural.
I grew up on one of those, so.
Yeah.
So-
I know what you're talking
So
about.
to answer your question, no, we usually don't make an adjustment.
Okay, that's what I was asking, is there an adjustment for that or not? Okay.
So the problem with the shared wells, is there any way to get a copy of those wells for an appeal?
Can we answer?
I mean, you've already, yeah, go ahead.
So to find those wells, number one, Idaho Board of Water Resources, also Southeastern Idaho Health District kind of watches those wells and stuff too. So those would be the two sources that I would send him to.
And actually, the health districts, the septic systems.
Well, I just thought that being they stated there was multiple properties that they already had a list.
Yeah.
That's why I asked.
Okay.
No,
Anything? John?
Just to make sure I'm following this completely, the total value that you're placing on this whole property, which includes these two structures, is $641,000. Is that right?
That's the tax assessment, yes. Their property assessment was 766.
Yeah, 766,007.
Oh,
Right,
that's like
yeah,
being,
I see that. I
I'm
see
being
that.
taxed
Yeah,
for
I'm
two
backing
different
out the
properties.
exemption, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we uphold the assessor's value at this point in time due to a lack of a preponderance of evidence.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 So we upheld their values, and like I say, you have the ability to appeal
Which I will.
to the courts or to the state of Idaho. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Board of Health Trust. And these are administrative that we're in now. They are. So, I read through these. I don't see a lot of difference from what was submitted before. I mean, they have different amounts and percentages, different things on them, but I've asked Brian if a clarification on our decisions last year. And Brian, have you
I
anything
haven't
to
heard.
add?
Yeah, I can reach out to Blake and see what's going on, but
I mean-
I haven't seen anything come through.
Any additional counsel
Oh,
on,
no, based on what I
On
told the
these-
commission in the past.
you've had the opportunity to look these over also, and they've been submitted to you. Commissioners?
I got no further comment.
With the analysis that you guys have done, has there been any changes to things based on the information you guys have received?
I don't believe that any of the building values have changed, no.
And really what we're talking about now is tax exempt or not tax exempt. And so it kind of takes it out of you guys' court a little bit, puts it into ours, and I'm still at the point with the information that we've received. We've given them opportunities to come and talk, and we just keep getting the same, this is what the statute says, and this is our goal. I mean, this property is used exclusively for the purpose for which Port of Health Trust is organized, including physicians, health services, images, labs, etc.
So, just for clarification's sake, Mr. Chair, what would you deem as acceptable information to make you change your position at this time?
I think that I need that, so say this property right here, Port of Medical Center Partnership, annual revenue, $224,776. This property, and like I said, I just read it, this property is used exclusively for the purpose for which Port of Health Trust is organized. Well, including physicians, health services, images, labs, etc. I think they're competing with the public, and they're using themselves, and they pick and choose what rent they have people pay. They pick and choose which doctors are benefited, which aren't. I think to keep on a level playing field for all services to the people of Bannock County, that somebody shouldn't be tax exempt. I think that gives them an unfair advantage. So I believe that they need to pay taxes on anything that they're competing with other organizations.
So what, if they're providing medical services, and I'm just asking for clarification, if they're providing medical services, which is in accordance with the statute, how do we then determine it's tax exempt for the various organizations? Is it, we're going to provide medical services at like a Health West situation, or is it a nonprofit situation, or what is that determining factor?
And that's what they're claiming, is that they are a nonprofit.
Correct.
And I don't see that they are. I see that they're for profit. I mean, they keep building their bank account, and they do a lot of good stuff in the community. I mean, they donate a lot of money and stuff, but I think it's the taxpayers that are donating that money without, this organization just being the administrators of taxpayer dollars. John, anything?
I agree with you. This is no different than what we saw last year. I mean, to me, it looks exactly the same. So we went through all these arguments before.
And so
I haven't seen anything new that would indicate anything's changed.
I just soon that we go ahead and let them appeal through the court system and get an answer.
Yeah, because we're at the same spot we were last year.
We've been in the same spot since I've been here.
And I know, Mr. Chair, if I may, on there as the BOE is considering this, I mean, the courts look at each one, you have to look at case specific, right? You can't do a one size fits all. They have given some factors for the BOE to consider that they look at, such as the stated purpose of its undertaking, right? So charitable LLC, what's the stated purpose of it? And is it being used for that purpose? Whether its functions are charitable, whether it's supported by donations, whether the recipients of the service are required to pay for the assistance they receive, whether there is a general public benefit, whether the income received produces a profit, to whom the assets would go upon dissolution of the corporation, and whether the charity provided is based on need. And so a lot of the case law talks about that, but that doesn't mean that you have to mark every box. Each situation's different for each parcel, but looking at least for the charitable purpose for tax exemption, that's kind of the guidance we've had.
Which is the same guidance we had last time.
Yeah.
I'll go with what you two think, because I'm not swayed one way or the other. So again, it goes back to the evidence. We don't really have any new evidence. So I'll let.
I'm looking for an answer. You making this motion?
I was going to let you make it.
And that list isn't exclusive, just that. It could be however the BOE determines it or not. So
Okay.
just want to give some guidance.
So before we make the motion, Mr. Chair, would it be of any benefit to you if we had Portland Committee who went through these properties and we could talk about the percentages and the use in a face-to-face manner? Would that sway anything.
Well, we've invited them to do that.
Okay.
And I think they've had at least 2 opportunities in the last few months to do that. And so at this time, I would say we just move it forward.
Okay.
So on property RPVMP 000600 and property RPVMP 000501, property RPRPSVS 000300, property RPRPPOC 051302, property RPRPPOC 051003, property RPRPPOC 050 or 5057 or 50703, and property RPRPPOC 050606, property RPRPPOC 0500502, property RPRPCPP 146900, property RPRPCPP 0822922, property RPRPCPP 082905, and property RPRPPOC 152800, that we uphold the decision and allow Portland Health Trust to go through the methods of appeal. We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That was fun.
Mr. Chair, I move that we exit the Board of Equalization.
Nope,
Oh, we have
nope.
more?
Oh,
Oh, I thought
we
that
got,
was it.
we got Crestwood Enterprises, which is Bannock, or Bingham Memorial Hospital, or their subset.
Excuse me.
And this is another one that we turned down. And says this appeal is for a property tax exemption denial. BMH Incorporated, Bingham Memorial Hospital, 501c3 hospital, is 37.5% owner of Crestwood Enterprises. They own the building up on Hospital Way. We were asking for the exemption on the 37.5% of the property, which is owned by a hospital, and Bingham leases 62.5% of the property from Crestwood Enterprises. So with this, and because it is the hospital, and they're leasing that, is that like we did yesterday with the ISU, and they get the 37.5%?
I'd have to look at the ADAPA again. I believe that does apply to healthcare facilities.
I thought
I'd have
so.
to review it one more time, refresh my memory, because I know I was looking at it for schools and
Schools.
educational purposes, but I believe healthcare is one. So,
I thought it did.
You're right.
I thought it did too.
yeah.
And so on this one, I would tend to agree with Bingham Memorial or Crestwood, that we'd take off the
37.5.
37.5 and make that tax exempt, but keep the rest of it as a taxable entity.
Correct.
Questions?
Mr. Chair, on parcel RPRPPP 20000100, I move that we exempt 37.5% of the assessed value as under the nonprofit hospital statute.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. That brings us to Henry Newts. And what do you got to tell us about this one?
Well, I prepared the packet. It's basically a fourplex, and he's concerned, the appellate is concerned that the land value increased too high. He says it's exactly the same as it has been since he bought it, and there haven't been any upgrades. So,
He's only contesting the land value?
he's only contesting the land value. At least that was my understanding from what I read on his packet. And so I pulled comparables from similar buildings, similar size lots, various parts around between Chubbuck and Pocatello. Tried to find buildings that were close enough or of the same type. We have a fourplex on Adams Street, just down the way from the appellate's property, and it's coming in at $95 a square foot. He's in our assessed value for his property is $73 a square foot. The fourplex on Von Elm Street also comes in at $98 per square foot, and one on Packard Avenue that's in at $130. That one's it's coming a little higher because it's a fourplex, but they sold it as a threeplex, but because they didn't finish the final unit in it, and it's just used as storage. So, but the land values are all the same. Land values for his neighbors are the same. He's right in there with everybody else, and we just had to raise land to make things equitable, and it's just the nature of the beast in Bannock County right now.
Well, he hasn't had an increase in land value basically for 3 years.
Right.
So,
And,
Yeah. No problem with this.
actually, the value of the fourplex has gone down.
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
So, Mr. Chair, on parcel RP-RC-RNS 002100, I would move that we uphold the assessed value.
we have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. John Banga? Is that yours?
Yes, it is. So this property is former gas station over on Yellowstone, just north of the Yellowstone and Oak Street interchange. And it's more recently been used as a general commercial, general retail space. It looks like they've been doing some improvements on it. We went and took a look in greater detail this summer, actually last week, at the exterior, both out front and out back. And we did find a small adjustment to be made on part of how we classify the inner portions of the building. So that would actually lower the assessed value from the original $446,000. It would lower it to $401,890, and that would translate to $231,739 on the land and $170,151 on the improvements. And then with the ongoing updates to the building, if something changes for next year, we'll review that at that time as well. So our recommendation would be to lower it to the total of $401,890.
Questions?
Mr. Chair, on parcel RP-NPT 000401, I move to accept the assessor's recommended value of $401,890 with the changes coming off of the improvements.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next, we have David and Susan Rogers. And this is one where their excuse?
They want it in ag, It isn't one that they called in earlier, so we had to call them back. And we did offer, we sent them an ag application, asked them to fill it out, and did explain that it was too late to get it this year, but that if they did qualify, that they could get it for next year. It all depends on if they're using it as ag. The last time it was visited is in November of 2022, and during that time they could see no ag use. It's never been in ag. I would make note that it went from a converted state to rural land, and it's been in rural land since then in 2023. And that's, so the three comparables are for rural land in the same land schedule, just to show that the land there is, it's a little low, or at least comparable with the land in that same land schedule right now as rural residential. If he does qualify, we did let him know that he could be put in it next year.
But they have not submitted a request.
I have not yet, no. He's never had one on file, so we sent him one, but he hasn't returned that yet.
Okay.
And my only question on this one, because I know where it is,
Right.
is, so over there in Pidcock, are them 5 acres, 3 acres? What are those parcels? Do you remember?
Some of them are 5, but most of them are 2.5 acres.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to compare, because they're selling for 100 to 150
To 160.
for
per
2
lot.
acres and
Yeah.
3 acres. And I just wanted to make sure that at 8 acres, we was in the same, so we're actually little. But they have water, sewer, and, power and stuff all plumbed into them, where this doesn't. So 8 acres, I feel like we're good.
Okay. Mr. Chair, on parcel RPR 401500470, I would move to uphold the assessor's value.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now you can make your motion.
Okay, Mr. Chair, now I would like to move to the BOE, Board of Equalization.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.